I think time is here and we will get started. So it's certainly my honor to call to order the 110th Annual General Meeting of Hockey Saskatchewan. Welcome. My name is Tim Hubick. I'm the chairperson of the Hockey Saskatchewan Board of Directors. I'll be facilitating tonight's meeting. And to start, a simple thank you to everyone for committing your time attending tonight's call. We moved away from a weekend date, hoping it'd be a little more convenient for the membership, opposed to biting into one of the very few summer-like weekends that we get. So it's appreciated you taking the time for sure. As mentioned, today's AGM is Hockey Saskatchewan's 110th. So that's a pretty good string we got running. And it'll be no different than our recent past AGMs. And as per current bylaw 20301, the agenda is fairly rigid. However, we should have time for a short question and answer period near the end. So if you're looking at the agenda, we can probably get started now with the roll call. And the roll call for our AGM will be recorded by staff through the registration process, as well as the attendees for the call that we're all on right now. And I think if everything adds up, we should have about 23 minor hockey associations represented, 7 members of our hockey officials group, 4 of our leagues, as well as the 11 board members, and as well as staff and special guests. So this will be confirmed a little bit later, but I think the roll call basically represents close to 42 votes when it comes time to voting for the motions. So I'll start with just a couple of introductions, and I'd like to take the time to call out the current board members. All of the names and contact information is listed on the website. But for your information, we have zone directors on the call tonight. I hope they're all on the call. I have a hard time seeing all my screens going on, but from Regina, we have Colleen Sestorix, as well as from Regina is Keith Janot, Jordan Brisbois from Gravelburg, Lisa McComber from Southie, Daryl Hollerwatch from Melville, and Kevin Karakachuk from Saskatoon. Then for officers, we have Sarah Hodges from Regina, Trevor Norum from Tisdale, Len Thomas from Saskatoon, Edward Watson from Eston, and myself, I'm from Weyburn. And also like to mention that at the conclusion of this AGM, we are welcoming 4 new zone directors as incoming board members. And they are Jason Gordon from Yorkton, Nicole Korpasuk from Norquay, Brody Gervais from Turtleford, and Brent Zabarczyk from Prince Albert. Also, just a quick mention that they're not all in attendance today, of course, but I'd like to acknowledge our current life members that are able to be here, and I think that's Al Hubbs. I know Marianne Varoba was intending to come, but just she messaged me a couple hours back and saying a family thing came up that she was likely not going to attend, but welcome very much, Al. Special guests from Hockey Canada, I believe Mr. Scott Furman, who is our West Regional Director for Member Engagement, has joined today as an observer. And also another special guest that we will hear from shortly has proven to be a great friend of Hockey Saskatchewan and has led our strategic planning review process, and that's Wendy Plandowski. Also joining today's call are a few of our senior staff members that I noticed on the call. And I think that's Derek Dureau, and of course, Joseph LaPrairie, Trent Say, and Thomas Pillar, and of course, our ever fearless leader, Kelly McClintock. So I'd like just to welcome you all to the general meeting this year. And thanks very much for attending. Just before we get into the balance of the agenda, I just want to mention a couple of housekeeping items. And just so you know, you may be aware of these items, but if not, we're going to have 7 motions during the AGM tonight. The 2 specific bylaw amendments will utilize the system that Joseph is supporting, and that's the Election Buddy software, and we will not use a show of hands. However, if there is a technology challenges there, we can always accommodate verbal or otherwise. So we'll make it happen. The votes via Election Buddy will be recorded and available within the minutes. And I think Joseph and Kelly may touch base a little bit later before we use the Election Buddy system, and they'll walk us through some details if needed. But for ease and efficiency, the other 5 non-bylaw amendment motions, we will have votes called within the meeting live, and where the default is just going to simply be in favor. and I will call for any opposition or abstentions at the appropriate time. And this will be done through the call that we're on. We don't have to go vote separately for them. And you can simply raise your hand or simply unmute yourself at any time and speak up. And also for efficiency, I've taken the liberty to prearrange all movers and seconders for each of the motions. So when I read the motions and list the names, no one's being surprised, just so you know. But I think that's all I have for right now. So I'm hoping, Trevor, I noticed you're on the call, and if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Trevor Norum from our board to acknowledge a few names with our memorial roll call. So Trevor, I turn it over to you.
Tim, thank you for this honor. This past year, we have said goodbye to a number of great hockey people with ties to our hockey community here within our province. On behalf of the board of directors and all of us at the Hockey Saskatchewan, we wish to express our sincere condolences. The following is a list of names that have been brought to our attention, and by no means is it comprehensive. Apologies in advance for any errors or omissions. So I'll get started. Richard Schmidt, 74 years of age, from Regina, passed on June 22nd. Ty Fisher, 17, from Lumsden, and passed July 15th. Arthur Henny, or Artie Henny, he was 89, from Yellowgrass, and passed away July 19th. Barclay Tresso, 44 years of age, from Lestock, Kenora, and Regina, passed August 1st. Kevin Bosch, 59, he was a coach, player, and hockey dad from Macklin, passed on August 11th. Patrick Vigneron was 63, from Wilcox, and he was a Notre Dame teacher and coach 30 plus years, August 31st. Todd Beatty, 48, from Moose Jaw, he was a hockey dad and coach, September 5th. Steve Taylor, 39, from Saskatoon, he was a former minor and senior hockey player, September 12th. Cody Strauss, or Strauss, 36, from Melfort, and a former minor hockey league player, on September 12th. Peyton Keller, 14, from Gull Lake, was a player on the Swift Current U15 AA, passed on September 25th. Judy Andrew, 77, from Eston, a hockey mom and a grandma, on November 6th. Matt Swaby, 34 years of age, from Prince Albert. He was a hockey dad, coach, and a player, on November 26th. Roger Hammond, 60 years old, from Elrose. He was a player, coach, and official, on January 16th. Sean Ferguson, 31, from Regina, a former player, January 18th. Hugh Huck, 85, a longtime player, coach, and dad, January 19th. Joel Verklin from Nipawin Hawks #1 fan, on January 28th. Brad Horning, 52, from Regina, a lifetime Regina Pat and hockey ambassador, on February 8th. Kevin Ritchie, 65, from Wilcox, a longtime hockey coach, on February 18th. Barry Davidson, 62, from Regina and Yorkton, a longtime hockey coach, on February 25th. Andrea Parmar, 50 years old, from Langenberg, and a hockey mom, March 31st. Jeff Yanko, 52 years of age, from Estevan and Wilcox, a longtime coach in Estevan Minor and Notre Dame, on April 30th. And finally, Josh Willis, 35, a hockey Regina former player, on June 2nd. Please pause with me out of respect. Thank you, Tim. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks very much, Trevor. Appreciate it. Another acknowledgement as we move forward here. I just wanted to call out that we have a current board member that is wrapping up his time on the board with this being his last meeting. And that's Mr. Keith Janot from Regina, who first joined the Hockey Saskatchewan board, I believe in 2019. And I do know that right from the start of his term, Keith has provided considerable input and value in all the area of the board's works. He's often turned to for his experience with executive management and professional development of all sorts. Keith is very well respected and will surely be missed by at the board table for sure. And Keith, just I hope you enjoy this summer if it gets here, and especially your newfound time. And on behalf of the Hockey Saskatchewan Board of Directors and staff, a very sincere thank you for all you've done to make our association better. So thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. All right. If you're keeping score, we're now into the agenda towards the approval of our last AGM minutes, and the meeting minutes from the 2021 AGM held last June have been distributed to the membership via the current AGM booklet. And I believe, if I have it right, they're starting on page 4. And I trust that you've all had a chance, those interested, to review the minutes. And I would thank Sarah Hodges for the motion to accept the minutes as presented, and also Kevin Karakachuk for seconding that motion. So now that it's in front of us, I'll certainly take any questions or discussions or other commentary around the acceptance from the minutes for last year's AGM. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so I'm going to put it to a vote, and I'll now call for that vote. And is there any opposition to accepting the minutes as presented, or abstentions? Again, not seeing any, so that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now is the fun part of the night where we get into the chairperson's report. My written report is also available in that same AGM booklet that was provided before this meeting. My report includes a lot of items from the board's perspective, and also in that booklet is the general manager's report and a registration report. So I kind of hope you had a chance to peruse all 3 of those, but especially the chair report. And as most board members will know, I'm always able to offer an opinion or commentary when it's wanted or needed or not. But I'm not going to read you the whole report. I will like to take the opportunity just to touch base on a couple of the items that I think were, fairly important. And I'll draw your attention to just a few of those board items. So in my report, I mentioned that the past year, and it's actually going on 2 years now, that have been extremely challenging in most areas of all of our lives, let alone planning for a hockey season amongst the uncertainty. But I know our staff, mostly led by Kelly's undaunting commitment, basically working tirelessly towards the return of hockey. And I know compared to most other provinces, we were extremely fortunate to have the season that we did. So Kelly, I tip my hat and thank you and your staff for your efforts in this area. Very much appreciated. Our board priorities for the season are typically set annually at a strategic planning session held each August. And last August, we did the same, and we certainly had some ideas and priorities set out and a plan set out that I'll say that ended up being, altered, to say the least, due to the pandemic. But the season began, and we battled through the pandemic and all the related health and other restrictions instead of, dealing with these certain board priorities. But the board finally did catch full stride, for sure. And we headed towards the end of the calendar year last year, and a number of lingering initiatives were tackled. And this included a few straggling items, as well as a few new items around our governance and our decision-making. One of the major board initiatives started last year and culminated this year was a comprehensive assessment and sort of a resulting action plan around equity, diversity, and inclusion, or how we've coined it as ED&I, and the impact of that on our game. So this effort was significant, to say the least. I've dedicated a lot of resources and a lot of time and energy towards it. And the effort really enjoyed unprecedented engagement from our membership and really beyond, because we reached out into the public opinions of the province. And what resulted from this effort was basically a 450-page report from our partners, Praxis Consulting. So this data is still being digested. Again, it's 450 plus pages of details, but the board and our staff together we're analyzing the data and digesting it basically. But I can assure you the learnings from it, from the report, have already started. And the real work is ahead of us moving forward to use this effort, to take the strides and the necessary measures to at least try and make our association better. So for that effort, the people involved, they all know who they are, and they're mentioned in my written report, but certainly it was significant, and I'm very thankful for that. Just along the lines of Hockey Canada, we are one of the only 13 members of Hockey Canada, which may surprise some, but there's 13 branches in the country, coast to coast to coast, and we are one of them. And relationships really remain key in developing a greater understanding of our national governing body and the role they play within our branch, as well as the role that our branch can play within their world. So Hockey Canada's growing efforts in the last few years along member engagement is really front and center this year, as a few huge efforts have been made with a number of key policies, as well as the new strategic plan for Hockey Canada that's culminating, that it just finished the final draft and is in place now too. So that's significant and very important to our branch, the relationship. So Mr. Scott Furman, I know you're on the call. I pass along on behalf of our branch and the board another huge thank you for all you do for our branch. It's much appreciated.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say 2 words.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone on behalf of Hockey Canada for all your efforts through a tough period of time. It's you folks that make the difference. So thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thanks, Scott. And Scott, so that was more than 2 words, but that's okay. The idea was there. Okay, just a couple more items I want to touch quickly on, and that's our governance task team. A couple of years back, we started what we thought was a pretty simple quest, and that was to improve the decision-making process for our association, how authority is transferred and how decisions are made and who has input and all of that. So we started that and quickly found out it's not a real simple quest, but it certainly is proven to be an ongoing effort that sees the board continue to really focus on policy governance and empowering our highly qualified staff to run the game of hockey in our province. So there's a distinction there that has grown and matured, and between the operations that our staff handles and does very well, and certainly the policy governance that our board now focuses on, and I'll say does well, but is poised to do much better. So I'm looking forward to that as we move forward. And this past season, we did enjoy some serious improvements in many areas, including an updated policy manual and the related procedures that go hand in glove with that. We also gained a better understanding of some of our key bylaws and the need for continuous improvements around our governance. And finally, I think within key initiatives, if you will, is our strategic planning task team, and that was spawned this past season, talked about for the last year or two. And one of the key initiatives that I'm certainly most excited about was the formation of this formal strategic planning task team. And a refreshed strategic plan, has been desired and talked about, like I mentioned, for a couple of years now for a number of reasons. But the timing really worked out well for the task team and our board, as Hockey Canada, as I mentioned, was also undertaking this very same effort, but at a much larger scale. And they did an incredible job with the engagement and some of the details around it. I know staff and board, myself and Kelly primarily, spent several hours within several workshops feeding and learning, and Hockey Canada really exhausted a large effort around member engagement and polling Canadians coast to coast and finding out some of the priorities, if you will, from those perspectives throughout the stakeholders. So we were fortunate to have our timing really line up and capitalize on that effort, because a minor hockey player within our branch is quite similar. There's nuances and dynamics from branch to branch, but I mean, the same principles are in play. So it was advantageous and really efficient for our task team to capitalize on the timing of it. And this task team was led by a consultant that was a true professional all the way, and that's Wendy Plandowski. I mentioned her name in the intros, and Wendy was able to guide the task team to some really incredible results, in which we're going to see in a few moments. The board recently approved the new strategic plan, and we're really looking forward to not only having this plan in place, but actually leaning on it to further update and improve our governance as well as our decision making. There's some key elements that are again, sort of that hand in glove. Now that the foundation is set there, we're looking at sort of the next step for the association on some evaluation matrices and board performance evaluations and assessments. And we're going to get there, but this provides certainly the foundation for us to build on for this coming year and hopefully, a number of years moving forward, and we'll be adaptable, therefore, to accommodate whatever the world may bring, like another pandemic or something. So having said that, Wendy will share her presentation on the strategic planning, and it's not going to be a long presentation, but it is going to be brief, but hopefully it'll give the membership on the call tonight sort of a sense of what the task team went through and what we landed on. And just before we get to that, I really need to take the time at this moment to thank our volunteers. Our volunteers are an extremely important part of the base for the whole strategic plan and the policy governance as a whole. They are in mind, meaning all of us as volunteers, in every decision and conversation that happens at the board table and beyond. And to the many that are on this call and the countless others within our province, they're literally the volunteers are the backbone of what makes the game possible. And on behalf of the board and certainly the staff, I just wanted to extend a sincere thank you at this moment. So appreciate it. And it's a thank you, period. So just moving forward, the last year or two has really taught the board and staff and sort of the senior leadership, if you will, a great many lessons that we've all learned, but these lessons aren't going to be forgotten. Collectively, we were sort of forced to change and change in the ways in which we operate, and also change simply the things that we did. So we not only learned that we were able to survive these changes, but we also learned that we could thrive within this change environment. So that's encouraging. And senior leadership across the association, meaning staff and volunteers from all aspects, are really constantly looking for new ways or different ways to improve everything we do. And probably the biggest lesson in my mind anyway is certainly that we've learned that failing fast and falling forward, that's okay. Not that everyone sets out to fail, but sometimes trying something is better than just simply sitting back and relying that, wow, that's the way it's always been done. So we can try, but if you're not so solid or rigid in your trying, you can always accommodate, make better, and go again in an improvement, right? And that's really what the lesson was that we're drawing from for the most part. And if the association can continue to learn, it's going to continue to grow and improve. These improvements will support us, all of us, volunteers and staff, providing the best hockey experiences that we can for all of our participants, which really is why we should all be on the call tonight. So I close my written report, I believe, with a thank you to the board and staff, as well as our volunteers. And that's really what I'm going to conclude these comments with, is much the same, a sincere thank you. And my last comment is a personal one, and that's just thanks to all of you on this call and the rest of our membership for letting me be a member of the Hockey Saskatchewan Board of Directors. I truly appreciate it and respect the position and hope to continue. So that is my report. And I did pre-arrange a motion to accept it as presented, the written version, and my comments tonight. And I thank you, Edward Watson, for motioning that. And the second by Colleen Sestorix. And so now that that's in front of us, I'll just open it up to the floor. And if there's any questions or comments. I'm not seeing any. Joseph or Kelly, if you're not seeing any, we can carry on. Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to just call for the vote. And is there any opposition to accept the chair report as presented? Any opposition or abstentions? Seeing none, that's going to be carried. Thank you very much. All right, and now, as previously mentioned, we have a special guest with us tonight, a few of them, but the one that I'm drawing on right now is I'd like to introduce Wendy Plandowski. She is going to share a brief presentation on our strategic planning task team, both, I think, a little bit of the process and certainly the results of this effort. So Wendy, I hope you're good to go, because if you are, I'll turn it over to you now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Timothy. And thanks to all of you for having me this evening. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, really, to share a bit of information with you with regards to the strategic planning process. I do have a very brief presentation that I will share with you just to help you to understand the good work that your task team did with regards to the strategic plan. And so you should be able to see the strategic planning document now, I hope. And I'm just going to walk you through a little bit right now. And so one of the things that we look for when we're doing a strategic plan refresh, I think, is really 4 key things. And so one of those is that, of course, the planning process is going to be efficient. We wanted to make sure that we did this in fairly short order and capitalized on resources as much as we could. The second thing we were looking for was obviously that it would be inclusive and that there would be broad representation of the different stakeholders. The third thing I think that we managed to do is that this is an executable plan. And I think that was one of the things, Keith, I think that you had brought up at the board meeting when I had come and presented a few months ago, was that this should be a plan that Kelly and the team can put into action and feel really good about guiding their day-to-day activities. And I think we've accomplished that. And then finally, the last thing that I know Timothy and I had talked about quite a bit at the onset was that this would be an innovative plan, that there would be elements of this plan that all of Saskatchewan hockey and the teams right across the whole province would feel really good about, seeing this plan represented in the different rinks at every level in every community, and would be something that everybody could embrace and be supportive of. So essentially, we wanted to do a plan that would be refreshed for the next, 3 or 4 years, which I think we've accomplished. We were very fortunate, as Timothy mentioned, that Hockey Canada was, also going through this very inclusive and successful process. And so to a certain extent, we utilized some of the tools that were already in play from Hockey Canada and tried to make sure that we were, as much as possible, using that document as a guiding document. So again, the vision, such a great vision, shaping character for life more than a game. There was obviously no changes to that whatsoever. It's a fantastic vision for the organization. The mission and this was one of the things that we decided was just a small tweak to lead, develop, and promote positive hockey experiences. What the task team decided was that one of the ways that they could really embrace the inclusivity project that had been going on was to simply add those 2 words at the end of the mission, for all. And it just rounds out the mission, and I think it makes a really big impact. Purpose, there's no change to that. Though, some of these things were just check, yes. This is still on track. And so we didn't spend a lot of time reinventing anything. The belief statements are still very valid, the goal statements. This is one of the changes that was made. And so previous to this, I don't think the values were necessarily brought to life in every rink. And yet what we found when we were doing our engagement with the different stakeholders was that the values are really important. And so we came up with 6 values that I think really resonate all of the research that we did. And those are that, Hockey Saskatchewan would embrace fun, safety, community, inclusivity, respect, and passion. And those just really seem to sit really well with the task team, the stakeholders, and the board. We, anticipated that we would have to do a fairly thorough environmental scan. So we did a SWOT, some visioning exercises, all the things that make us strategic planning people excited about. And I can't say enough about the volunteers that participated. They were they participated so well every step of the way. So this is the SWOT that was done. All of this information will be available to you. I know I want to be brief because you've got lots of other exciting things to do. But one of the things was there were some emerging themes that came across. And one of them is, again, that diverse and inclusive experience. Also that hockey is the focus, not the organization of hockey. Ensuring that the Hockey Saskatchewan brand is recognized throughout the province, and again, just that safety, respect, and trust, and fun for more players and participants across Saskatchewan. We came up with some strategic pillars that you'll see throughout the next few years. Grow the game, organizational development, community and social impact, program consistency, event and team success, and continued financial stability. So with each of our pillars, we came up with some strategic objectives. And so you can, go through these on your own as the plan gets released. But, I think the one big addition is under this community and social impact. And so this is a new strategic pillar. It's something that the task team felt, really added a new objective as far as being committed to being a leader in the area of community and social impact through best practice policy development, and looking at different innovative approaches to values, which is, I think, really exciting. And this is a little bit of that innovative piece. Again, around program consistency, event and team success, which is another thing that's really important. And then, of course, continuing to ensure excellent financial stability through new and mutually beneficial partnerships and leveraging existing relationships. So this is the executable part. So just making sure that what we measured gets managed. And so ensuring that this strategic plan can come to life. It's not just going to sit on a shelf, but there are actually really tangible results that can be accomplished through it. So at the end of the day, the improvement path and the recommendations was that, one of the actions was to initiate efforts to address innovative ways to address equity, diversity, and inclusion when it comes to recruitment and retention of hockey players in Saskatchewan. And so we talked, one of the exciting things that came out of this was perhaps a Hockey Saskatchewan Youth Shadow Board for this initiative, which would create a unique opportunity to build leadership with young hockey players and live that vision of shape character for life. In addition to that, we just wanted to create a nimble metrics and reporting tool that Kelly would be able to embrace with the team at the operations level, but also in many ways empower the board and all of the volunteers as well. So these are just some samples of some prospective, strategic planning documents. And as far as resources, we did rely heavily on the ED&I assessment, some environmental scan results, additional best practice right across really North America when we were looking at some of these things, and of course, the Hockey Canada strategic planning document. And does anybody have any questions on the strategic plan, the process, any of the breakthrough initiatives or anything like that? I often say in my workshops that I maybe could have been an auctioneer. And so it's always a challenge. When Tim said be brief, I kind of whizzed through that, but I know you have a very full agenda, so.
Go ahead.
So Sarah had a question there. Will this be available to read fully? Absolutely. I think now that it's been endorsed by the board, Tim, it will be sent out, or Kelly.
Yeah, we hope to have, everything that we present tonight and a recording of tonight up by tomorrow or Thursday morning. So.
Any other questions?
Not looking like it. It's a quiet bunch, Wendy. I know that firsthand. So first off, thanks very much. Really appreciate you taking the time tonight to join us and sharing the work you and the task team recently accomplished. I know intimately that it's great stuff and it's going to serve us well moving forward. And like Kelly said, we kind of rolled through the presentation you had as sort of the internal use document of the strategic plan as a whole. And we hope to have some more capsule versions, like you showed the last couple slides there, a couple different versions, and something that we can use and tangible that we can promote in a much simpler capsulated form, as opposed to the full document and everything that it represents with the affiliated resources. But all of that information from this, now that it is board approved and we're moving forward with it, is certainly available to anyone. And if you can't wait for the versions that Kelly referred to, reach out to myself at any point in time, or certainly Kelly, and we'll accommodate, because that information is for the membership for sure. So Again, thanks very much, Wendy. Appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, well, moving right along, if you're following on the scorecard, we're looking into the next agenda item, and it's sort of time to take a break from the boring governance stuff and strategic planning. And now we get to really dive into some of the real fun. And you know, with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kelly, and he's going to guide us through the auditor's report.
Thanks, Tim. I can just refer everybody to page 25 of your document. It's an executive summary that I provided. That's maybe 6 to 8 pages of notes on the audited statement. I'm not going to go through them all. I don't want to bore you too much, but I encourage you to review all those notes. And if you have any questions of any kind, please reach out to me. If something doesn't make sense, please let me know, and I'll clear it up for you and answer any questions you have. In terms of what I'll just talk about is that page 25 is in there. You see a little bit of a summary of some of the things that we experienced in the past year. So if I refer you to page 38 of the document, which is our statement of operations, you see that I always encourage everybody to compare what this year's audited figures are to what our budget figures were, as opposed to last year. Last year was certainly a unique year with COVID really shutting down a lot of our operations. We anticipated that we were going to be able to be back fully this past year, but there were some things that certainly impacted us throughout the year. And just some things just to highlight, and they are on that page 35, or pardon me, 25, is you know, we still were able to collect money through the Canadian Wage Subsidy Program, and so there was and also rent subsidies. So there's a little over $100,000 there that we were able to secure through the federal government. We did alter a lot of our SAS First programming. We weren't able to hold any programming last year. So in order to create teams for our under 16 male for a WHL Cup and under 18s for what we thought was an under 18 national championship, but it ended up just being one in the West involving the 4 Western provinces. We held some camps in August. So there's some additional expenses there. But then we also had to adjust all of our SAS First tournaments, and we made that decision, you know, due to COVID, in that normally at all the tournaments, the players and the teams stay together, 4 to a room. They pay the additional fees for those hotel rooms. We feed them, and we look after transportation to and from the arena. But we made a decision because of COVID that all the players would stay with their parents. So that reduced the amount of cost, and you'll see that when you compare, you know, our budget figures in excellence to what the final figures were, and then certainly reduction in the fees that we charge. So there was less revenue brought in, but they're offset by the less expenses. So as an example, on a top 160 at Christmas time, you know, hotels, meals, and accommodations and transportation are probably around $65,000-$70,000 for that event alone. And so that we didn't experience those expenses, but we didn't charge the additional fees that help cover that. You know, our registration numbers are the registration report in the document. We are not at the numbers we were in the past. I think some of you as associations experienced some reduction in numbers, and where we really found where there was, especially in the northern half of the province, where a lot of the Indigenous communities didn't register for the last 2 years now because of COVID and situations there. So we're hoping that we can get them back next year and do some of the initiatives that we've always been doing up in the north. With senior hockey, there was some different provincial guidelines for COVID, that anybody over 18 that was playing had to wear a mask or be fully vaccinated. So we saw a reduction of teams in that area. still happy to see around 85 or so teams still register, and really had not just in senior, but I thought our provincial playoffs this year were just really a great example of supporting minor hockey in our province and supporting arenas. And I saw some, great totals for 50-50s at games around the province, and especially at a couple that I was at, handing out some plaques and banners. And it was a great experience to see us back to be able to play provincials. And then also probably one of the biggest things that we had was a real reduction in officials, and we were down 800 to 900 officials than we have in a normal year, which really impacted especially any initiatives that we're trying, a lot of things in coaching, a lot of things that we had planned and do in a normal year. We are just the focus on the officiating side was just to be able to have enough officials to work the games that were going. So there was not a lot. We didn't reach the levels that we normally do in terms of our programming and using the resources we have there. So it's unfortunate, but the focus now is to try and get a lot of those people back. My analysis, or maybe Trent, when we look at it within the office, we think a lot of players, especially minor hockey players, made the focus on playing as opposed to playing and officiating, especially because of what the close contact rules were of the provincial government in the fall up until the end of January. So we really hope that MHAs, and we talked about this in a lot of membership calls, really put a focus on getting minor hockey players back into officiating and encouraging them to, and so we can see those numbers go back up and less stress on our system in terms of the demand for officiating. I think they did, people that still officiated did a great job. Some of them probably got pretty tired by the end of the year because they were used a lot more than normal. But I think that that's a real focus that we're looking at internally in the office for next fall. So you can see on our statement of operations that ultimately we had a surplus of $315,000. So moving forward, we're in good shape financially. I think that you'll see, within there, we have money within an investment fund with Wood Gundy, and I don't like looking at my pension plan in the last couple of months and see how far it's dropping. We haven't done very well since the end of January. We were doing very well up until then, but I think like all of us, we're experiencing the same thing that's happening internationally there. So that's all I want to comment on the audited statement. If you have any questions now, please feel free to ask me. But if you have a closer opportunity to evaluate it and you have any questions, please call me or send me an email.
Hi, Kelly, it's Rick here. I just want to ask you a question about the refereeing, if that's possible. Sure. I mean, we all agree that there was a drastic reduction in the numbers of referees this year, and 2021-22 was a difficult year for the number of registered officials we had in place. Minor hockey associations really do need assistance for quick replenishment to help retain the ones we have. Will Hockey Saskatchewan consider doing something similar to Hockey BC, where they are charging all officials, new and returning, $5 to register? This would help returning officials and attract new officials. It may also bring back some of the referees we lost in 2020. And with the surpluses that Hockey Sask has, it could be very, very beneficial.
That's something, Rick, that we hadn't considered, but that's something we certainly can.
Okay, does that be something you bring up at the next board meeting sort of thing?
Yes, we've got things in place, so we're going to have to do that fairly quickly because, the online virtual clinics, et cetera, will be, beginning soon. Last year, we did people that had registered the previous year and then only were able to work basically a month. They had reduced fees this past year as well. So we did take that into account with returning officials this year. But we'll look at it for next year.
But that wasn't for all officials last year. That was only for certain ones. upper age
Right.
group never got any kind of reduction.
Especially the ones that had registered the previous year and gone through the process and to be certified, and then only got a month of a season.
Well, speaking for myself and my family, my son did that, and he only got the 1 month. And then when it came to last year, he said, "Nah, I'm not interested." That's why he's not playing or not reffing.
Yep.
Okay.
Appreciate the feedback. Any other questions that anybody has?
I'm not seeing any, Kelly, so I think we'll
Okay.
call it done for now. You extended the offer to reach out to you anytime, and I know that firsthand you're good with that. So I reiterate, if there's any questions around the audited statement or any of the finance, certainly contact Kelly at your leisure. He's always willing to explain and to go through details. And Rick, to your comments, certainly, you know, the board timeline, you know, we're in the off season now, but with the strat plan as mentioned and our priorities being set in August, this will be a note that I've taken for sure. And if there's potential relief of one way or another that is feasible within our timelines now or as we move forward, it'll be considered, and who knows. But thanks for mentioning it, Rick. It's duly noted.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that.
Okay. So that's the auditor's report for 2021, 2022. We have a motion to accept it as presented, and I thank you, Keith Janot, for the motion, and that's seconded by Lisa McComber. So now that it's in front of us as a body, are there any further questions or commentary? Still not seeing any, so I'm going to call for the vote. Is there any opposition or abstentions from supporting it? Perfect, that'll be carried. So I think the next item is the appointment of auditors for the 22-23 season coming up. And we have a motion from Len Thomas that's seconded by Daryl Hallerowich to appoint KPMG as to continue being our chartered accountant as the auditors for Hockey Saskatchewan for the upcoming fiscal year. I thank you, gentlemen, for the motion and the second. And with that in front of us, I'll just ask if there's any questions or concerns or comments around appointing KPMG as the auditor for Hockey Saskatchewan the upcoming year. Didn't anticipate any in this area. So having said that, I'm going to call for the vote. Are there any opposition or abstentions to appointing them? Good, that's carried. Thank you very much. So I believe if I'm still going in order, which I better check. Yes, we have an introduction, sort of a discussion and voting on the bylaw amendments coming up. But just before we get into that, I have a couple comments that I'd like to make, and that's per current bylaw 20401 something or other. The Hockey Saskatchewan Board of Directors have the right to amend and alter the regulations of playing rules of Hockey Saskatchewan, and that was completed in April. And the summary of those changes were forwarded to the membership in May. And if there's any questions around that, the regulations or playing rules, you know, we'll have an opportunity either tonight in the question and answer period, if we can get to that. But there's no voting on those or amendments. Those amendments or alterations at this time. This is strictly for the bylaws and constitution, and the constitution, we don't have any. But in regards to the regulations of playing rules, modifications and changes for the upcoming season, again, they were presented. And Kelly, I don't know if there's, again, we can deal with in the Q&A in a few minutes if there's anyone on the call that has them, but do you have anything to offer on that right now, or are you good to let us slide?
No, we can move forward.
Okay. Thanks. So having said that, we do have two notice of motions that will make an amendment to the current bylaws that we're going to be considering tonight at this meeting. And again, as per current bylaw 20402, we need 75% of the eligible votes on this call to carry each of these two motions. And also with bylaw 20403, I believe, it further states that any amendments or changes to the bylaws which are carried at the AGM, they shall take effect immediately. So just keep those things in mind. And before we get to the actual votes on the two notice of motions, I'm just going to call upon Kelly, but likely Joseph, I'm assuming, just to talk about the election buddy and if there's anything systematically or process-wise that we should be aware of. So I'll just turn it over to Kelly. Joseph.
I got it, Tim. Thanks. So yeah, using Election Buddy again this year, we had a little bit of a hiccup there, so I apologize for that. I think we've got that all sorted out. So the only thing that is noteworthy to those that were affected by that first vote, that pretest vote, I may have to send you a direct link. I'm just going to pop it in the Zoom chat box when we open the vote up. That way, anybody can access it from that way, but you'll certainly have to use the same login credentials that I provided previously. It looks to me like most people were able to successfully vote that received their credentials. So it seems like it's pretty straightforward from that standpoint. So I think unless anyone has any questions for me right now, then we can proceed whenever you're ready, Tim.
I think just a reminder also, Joseph, that, there's people that are just observers on the call tonight. And so, there's people that have been designated to vote the one vote for your association. So that's key as well.
All right, thanks, Joseph and Kelly. And I think, Joseph, correct me, or Kelly, I guess, if I'm wrong, if there's any technology challenges or kerfluffles, if you will, you will have the opportunity to vote. And you should just, normally when we're in the same room for an AGM, you're putting your hands up with a colored card type thing to show your intention. That's still available to you now, but it's just for accuracy and speed. We're looking at the software Election Buddy to conduct it. But if that's a challenge in any way for any reason, please let it be known, and you will still be able to express your vote. You just have to let myself or anyone on the call know here with the hand up or even taking off mute, that type of thing. We'll give it a few minutes once things open to try to make it a reasonable amount of time. But if there's any challenges, just let it be known and we'll find a way to work around that. All right, and I don't know if anyone, Derek, Kelly, Joseph, sharing the screen with the notice of motion from the booklet.
I can certainly do that, Tim.
Sure, if you just go to, I think it's page 56 is where the notice of motions are, but I'll just mention that the board of directors have given, a fair bit of consideration to these two amendments and that we're going to be considering tonight. And at this past April board meeting, the board endorsed both of the amendments unanimously. And we are now presenting them to the membership with our recommendation for approval. The notice of motions themselves are presented again for approval. And I believe they start on page 56 of the AGM booklet. And if you can put them up on the screen, Joseph, that'd be great. Or at least the first one. We did have a number of virtual zone meetings in recent months where Kelly and others were on there to socialize and communicate the details around these two motions. They're pretty straightforward and pretty simple from my biased perspective, because I've kind of lived them for quite a while, but they are on the screen in a small version. If you can squint, you can see them, but maybe just pump that up for sure. And this will be the first one. And like I said, even at the zone meetings, a number of zone meetings there and other dialogue opportunities or conversations they were mentioned, but you'll still have an opportunity to express any questions or comments tonight once the motion is in front of us. So we're looking at the first motion, and that is to bylaw 20304A, I believe, and that is the voting. And simply put, this is instead of the board members individually voting at the AGM, it would change to the chair represents the block voting from all the eligible board of directors that are active and eligible at the time for a vote. So the board discussed this and it made sense. And the reality is in the rationale, I believe there near the end, it sort of state, this is what's always been done in my 17 or 18 years is the April board meeting. We've always, as a board, considered all motions, whether it be initiated by the board itself or by a member. We've considered them, deliberated, and determined a position, and that's what we've moved forward with. So that's basically just status quo doing that. This formalizes it and just sort of takes out any ambiguity. So this motion, I believe, is, I don't know if I have it in front of me. Let me look. I do have a name, and this is Kevin Karakachuk and Trevor Norum. are moving this motion and seconding the motion. So having said that, I am going to ask now that it's in front of us, if there's any questions or commentary or thoughts about this specific motion. I'm not seeing any. So having said that, I think, Joseph, will you now open the voting for it?
Can do.
Okay.
So the vote should be open now. If anyone's having difficulty seeing that, please let me know. As I mentioned previously, if you need the direct link, I've just put it in the chat box now.
Joseph, are you able to monitor and see the voting activity if there's people successfully voting?
Yes, I am. I have
Okay.
31 of the 42 registered voters currently have voted.
30.
There's only 35 present, Joe.
35 present. 35 present, correct. Yeah, 42 that are on my voters list here. So I don't know if someone's crunched that number already.
Yes, just make sure all 35 vote.
Yeah, we're trying to vote here. Gary's trying to get in there to vote. So ours isn't recorded yet.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, it's Kevin. I get an access key or password not found.
Oh,
As I.
Tim, you won't have one only because you would have one in case of a tie.
Oh,
This
okay.
time. Kevin, I will look into yours right now.
Sounds good.
Terry, if you or Gary are having issues, let us know. But is there anyone else other than Kevin and as Terry mentioned, anyone else having any issues?
We're getting closer to it going through.
Okay.
Joe, somebody must have dropped off because there's only 34 now.
Okay.
Are these case sensitive, Joe?
Those ones are correct.
I think that Gary is the one that dropped off because he lost connection. So now I have him on speakerphone, but his vote just went through. So we're good.
Oh, good.
Thanks, Terry.
No problem.
Kevin, have you had any luck casting your vote yet, or you're still in the midst?
I haven't had any luck, but I have a firewall issue with a work server. So, you know, let's continue on.
Okay, would you like to text me your vote, or Kelly?
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
I've sent it into Kelly, Tim.
Okay.
And Tim, just so you know, I have no more on the queue waiting to vote. I have 33 of the 42 eligible, and I believe Kelly said 35 was our total on call, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So am I good to close? I guess final call, I guess.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anyone's expressed any concerns.
Okay. And going once, and we're gonna close now.
Okay, and I flipped you a text, Joseph.
Correct, yeah. I'm just gonna go to the results here. And I'm just gonna hide this, and I'm gonna give a share on screen. Make sure I pick the right one, because I got so many things open. Can everyone see that all right?
Yep. So it looks like 29 were in support of, and I believe if my math is right, we need 27 to carry it for 75% of the body.
Correct, and keep in mind the percentage is based on, yeah, that 32 that's been submitted.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so that motion is carried. So I'll thank everyone for their efforts there. All right, we're going to the next more challenge. Share that motion if you don't mind, Joseph. And it's looking for the second and final motion of the evening, and that is the bylaw 20503. And that's the structure of the board, where we are looking to change the board of directors from consisting of 2 classes, 7 officers, 16 zone directors, and then replace that with Hockey Saskatchewan board of directors consisting of 9 members. I think the rationale was provided in the book here. We have this motion coming forward, being moved by Len Thomas and seconded by Jordan Brisbois. So I thank you very much for putting that motion forward. And now that it's in front of us, I'm going to ask anyone on the call if they have any questions, concerns, or thoughts or commentary.
Can you just read it out loud? I had to switch my phone, so I can't see it.
Okay. I think that the current wording is the Board of Directors of Hockey Saskatchewan shall consist of the following: 7 officers and 16 zone directors. The proposed wording is to change that to the Hockey Saskatchewan Board of Directors shall consist of 9 members. And then further in the motion is rationale.
It's probably important to note that lower in the rationale, there's the 3 tiers of directors that I believe is an important point.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's for sure. And within that rationale, that's where if it's moved, the 9 members, they would be 3 board members from the larger associations with player registrations greater than 500. There would also be 3 from the tier 2 or the medium associations for MHAs with player registrations between 100 and 500. And then there'd also be 3 board members from the tier 3 or smaller association that have registered players less, less than 100. And that idea is a target state that the composition of the board would always be reflective of small, medium, and large, like a little bit of everything. So we wouldn't have all small, all large, like a narrow focus. The target state would be to have 3 board members from each of those areas to provide the reflection of the demographics within our province. This was also presented at a number of zone meetings, I believe, by Kelly in the monthly MHA calls, and been around for a little bit, a lot of discussion around it. But again, this is what the board has landed on, the current board, and this is what we are putting forward to be considered tonight. So hopefully that snapshot on the tier model is understood. Are there any questions or concern at all around the motion? Okay, well, the crux of the motion, just for clarity, is really reducing it from the existing board of 23 to a board of 9. And that board of 9 would be reflective of all cross sections of our membership as a desired state. So just before we go to the vote, I just want to once again ask anyone on the call if there's any questions or concerns around the understanding or the intent of the motion. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I think Joseph, now just for the current board members, you are aware now that the previous motion was carried, that it takes effect immediately, meaning the chair, myself, will cast the board's vote as we determined in our April board meeting, that I will cast the block vote of the 10 eligible votes. We have 11 board members today. With the vacancies, there's 11, but the chair, myself, does not vote, so I will cast a block vote of 10. Not sure how I do that, Joseph. Did you want me to text you?
No, yours is actually loaded in as a vote of 10.
Oh, okay. So then I should have access now.
It does the thinking for me.
Oh, perfect. So just again to everyone on the call, is there any questions or comments around the motion? I assume with silence that everyone understands the motion and we're ready to put it to a vote. Joseph, I'm not hearing otherwise, so if you don't mind opening up the voting, away we go.
Will do. And that should be just launched now in your dashboard there. For those unable to get back to the dashboard, I have provided the link directly to motion 2 in the chat.
Hey, it worked.
Kevin, if you're still having issues, you can just text me and I'll get it to Joe.
All right, thanks, Kelly.
Kevin has no issues because Kevin has no vote.
No,
That's right.
That's
Tim's
true.
got the block vote. Tim's got the block, so I'm good.
Yeah. Kevin, I assure you, your vote was registered.
Thank you, Tim.
Just have a couple still in the election queue here.
Joe, there should be 34. One person has left the meeting.
Okay. And I have no further members in the queue. Call for any issues with voting in case someone is still out there, I guess. And Tim, I'll leave it to you if you want to close the vote. I have no left in the queue.
Okay, then I'm going to assume with that everyone had the opportunity to cast their vote, and just a last call on the last call for the last call. Anyone have any issue voting? Anyone on the call? Okay, I see no concerns there, Joseph, so we can close it off then. Please
Okay.
and thank you.
And just one moment. And if everyone can see my screen now, I have a vote in favor of 30 and opposed of 4, a total of 34 votes cast.
Great. I believe with 34, we needed 26 or 27 to carry it with 75% minimum. So that motion is carried. Thanks for all your help, Joseph. There was a third motion that was not a vote. It's just information only. And that was in the event that if the last one that was carried is carried. I just wanted to make everyone aware that the board this coming year is going to have to make other bylaw changes. And that's not really any intentional stuff or changing the way we operate. It'll be more along the lines of housekeeping. And that's just some of the wording is going to have to be now be revisited to remove officers and zone directors and just make it board members. So we will review the bylaws, the existing bylaws with the new lens, and anything that is housekeeping related to the board structure change that was just approved will be acted on. And then at the following AGM, 12 months from this June, next AGM, we will bring those housekeeping changes to the membership at the AGM for them to approve or ratify, but we will act on them moving forward. And there's no curveballs in there. It's simply just going to be the execution of what we just approved. But there are going to be some tweaks to the bylaws that you're going to, along the housekeeping lines, that you're going to, we all next AGM will be dealing with. So just, is there any questions around that? It's just basically a heads up. There's no vote, there's no opinions needed, but if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me now or after the AGM. So I'm not seeing any, so I think we are going to move along and just first off with the technology. I'm in theory a professional technology guy. I work in finance and in the banking environment with technology for close to 35 years. So I know that it can be sometimes challenging and it's never really fluid, but we work through it. So I thank you everyone on the call for your patience and working through the changes that we just were able to consider and move forward. So having said that, we now do have a few minutes that I'll basically turn it over to Kelly, I assume, because it's going to be along the lines of operations. But we do have a few minutes for any questions and hopefully answers that we can provide. So I guess, Kelly, if you're good, we'll just open it up to the floor and let her buck.
You bet.
I'm not surprised that there's not a rush because Kelly, I think you talked to a lot of the members on the call tonight and others on a regular basis. So as always, if there's really nothing, coming to mind right now for anyone, reach out to if it's around the operations or any of that to Kelly first and foremost, or staff. And if it's more along the lines of governance or policy, certainly feel free to reach out to myself at any time. Or any board member. Okay, so I think I'm not seeing any activity unless I'm missing it, but Joseph, Kelly, do you guys see anything there?
All good, Tim.
Okay. Again, well, it's not your last chance. We will continue with enhancements to the member engagement as we move forward. Certainly, we're going to try to take July off. We got a little bit of work in the next week to try to support the changes we just made and figure things out. But then through hopefully July, we can remain a little quieter for the most part, and then fire up again in August with some of the priorities that are in front of us. And part of that will be the member engagement or the calls and the format that they take that Kelly does with each of the zones, if you will, on a regular basis. So those will be coming soon. So you have plenty of opportunity to reach out with any questions or thoughts. All right. So agenda wise, we're moving into closing comments, and that has my name beside it. But I really don't have a whole lot further to say than what I've already said. So I'm just going to leave it pretty much there and just again offer or extend the offer to reach out with me to me for any questions or comments that you may have. Just want to, again, I know it's kind of monotonous as far as going on with these thank yous, but a sincere thank you to all of you on the call tonight, taking the time to join. Rain or shine, it's still an evening of our own time that we all gave up. I thank you very much. The AGM, since we no longer deal with operational regulations or playing rules, and we're strictly bylaws, constitutions, sprinkled with a few financials. It's not real sexy or exciting, but fundamentally it's really important. And what we're working towards is really enabling the volunteers at the board level to be in a position to succeed and to become better and make the association better. So that's what your commitment tonight sort of represents to me and many of the board members, and I'm sure the staff and others. Just a quick thanks again to Mr. Furman. Scott, thanks for attending our AGM. It's always nice to have a Hockey Canada presence. Wendy Plandowski, thank you for your time tonight. Life member Al Hubbs, appreciate you joining. And to all the board members, basically, a last thank you to all of you over the past year and to the staff on the call. Our membership appreciates the expertise of our staff. I know the board relies on it. And when topics get difficult and answers get tough, it's comforting knowing that we have an experienced crew of professionals in the office led by Kelly to handle things. So, you know, and my last thank you is basically going to be to everyone that's still on the call. Thank you again for joining. Appreciate your input. It's your association, and we, you know, the board certainly doesn't forget that at any time. We're trying to represent the ownership of the association, which is everyone on this call tonight, and that's never lost and never will be lost. Having said that, if no one has any objections, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn. And I do know that we have that prearranged, of course, and that's going to be moved by Kevin Karapachuk and seconded by Sarah Hodges. So we're about to adjourn. Is there any opposition? Abstentions, I guess. Perfect. Well, again, my final thank you to all on the call. We are now adjourned. I appreciate your time. Have a great evening.